Class is in memory of Jared Orchen, and today we're going to learn about the mitzvah of Pidyon Haben, redeeming the firstborn. Where in the Bible we'll have a journey in the Bible about the firstborn. It's amazing to see how many times in the Bible is mentioned the idea of the firstborn and the mitzvah of redeeming the firstborn. It's one of the mitzvahs that are written the most in the Bible. It's shocking to see how many times this is written. Where we see in the Bible the first time that the firstborn is something unique? How you know?
Isaac.
Only a boy.
What?
Only a boy.
I'm talking about where you see the firstborn boy is special. To be a firstborn.
Isaac.
Now where you see, well, Isaac is not a
He's the
firstborn.
secondborn.
Oh, but he's firstborn to
Where you
Sarah.
see in the Bible that a firstborn is something special?
Egypt?
You know.
So that wouldn't be Reuben.
You know. Where you see that being a firstborn is something special?
Oh, well, with Jacob and Esau.
Jacob is trying to buy the firstborn right from Esau. Obviously, there is something into it, right? That's number one. Then we see if Jacob is trying to buy it from Esau, he's telling him, if you want the lentil, send me your birthright. Obviously, birthright as carrying something. That's the first time in the Bible we'll see it. Where's the second time?
Well, Reuben loses his birthright.
In the Bible, mister.
Well, it's in the Bible.
In the Bible. It's not in the
and
Bible.
Ephraim?
Very good. Menashe and Ephraim. Jacob is switching his hand. The right hand he wanted to give to the older son, and the left, obviously, the older son means something. And when he gives them to the older son, to Ephraim, he says, I'll give him the extra blessing that belongs to a firstborn. That you see here already again, that the firstborn gets a double portion. Again, you see in the Bible that the firstborn gets something unique. Right?
Absolutely.
Hello? Very good. Then this is the two places in the book of Genesis that we see that the firstborn, that we see before anything, from the day of creation, the firstborns were unique. Naturally, people gave more credit, more respect, were more cherished. The firstborn were more cherished. Adam and Eve. Adam was the firstborn, obviously, right, of the world.
Not so much with Cain, though.
1 second.
Sorry.
I said, where is it written? I don't say everywhere it's clear. The first, you see, naturally, it's evolving the idea of a firstborn. Now we'll go to this week's parsha. Page 277, almost by the end of the parsha, after God convinces Moses to become his messenger, the redeemer of the Jewish people, God tells Moses, in top of page 277, number 22, you must say to Pharaoh,
You must say to Pharaoh, this is what God says. Israel is my son, my firstborn. I have told you to let my son go and serve me. If you refuse to let him leave, I will ultimately kill your own firstborn son.
okay, let's stop right here. My son is the first of all, here we hear the first expression that the Jewish people, the firstborn son of God, means to say they are number one, they're most important. This is to a point, information agreement that when Jacob bought the birthright from Esau, God agrees with that. He says, Israel is Jacob. Israel is my firstborn son. That means God agreed with Jacob's, if you want, buying the birthright from Esau. Then what God tells Pharaoh, measure for measure. You let my firstborn son go, I will let your firstborn. If not, I'll kill your firstborn son. That's the first story. The first time we see the firstborn. Moses did not tell it to Pharaoh. Here, first of all, here, God threatens with the 10th plague before anything happens, right? Then God ended up to do another 9th plague, and only then was a 10th plague. Why was 9 plagues before? God tried to save human life. He tried to give them plague with blood and with frog and so on, all the other 9, all the way to darkness, to try to convince Pharaoh to let people go before anything bad happens. But it didn't work. Then he had to do the 10th plague. Then here we see that the Jewish people, the firstborn, really the firstborn level, got involved in the exodus from Egypt. That became the firstborn an issue, a mitzvah, an importance. Until now, but before already we saw firstborn are treated unique, treated differently. Even Joseph, you can say that he was treated unique by Jacob because he was the firstborn of Rachel. Not the firstborn of Jacob, but the firstborn of Rachel. Now we'll go. That's in the beginning of Exodus. Now we'll go.
Question for you about this.
Yeah, please.
particular line. If Israel is the firstborn, then other nations must be second and thirdborn. Doesn't this mean that all nations then are sons of God or children of God?
First of all, every human being is a son of God. Is a child of God. Absolutely, absolutely. And many commentators see it this way. Yes, absolutely. Every human being is a child of God. The Jewish people, the firstborn. What do you expect usually from the firstborn? To be a role model, to take responsibility. That's what the firstborn is. If you're firstborn in a family of 3 boys, if the oldest goes the right way, usually they follow suit. It's much easier. Then the firstborn is the role model. In the firstborn it's one of the, we'll go to the end already, one of the explanation of the importance of firstborn in Kabbalah is the firstborn gets a double portion of the spirit of his father, of the soul of his father, so to speak. He is more the continuation of his father than any other children. Firstborn son. In this sense, you can say the firstborn son Israel has more a double spirit of God, continuation in the world, representing God in the world. Like the firstborn represents the father stronger than the other children. That's why in Jewish law, a firstborn gets a double portion in inheritance. By Jewish law, the firstborn son gets a double portion. Gets 20%. Because he has more of the spirit of God. Of his father.
Yeah, I think it's also interesting to note here, especially this time of year. I mean, Israel is the quote son of God. Well, we hear about in Christianity the son of God being something literal. Well, it's a metaphorical term.
It's a metaphorical to everybody.
Yeah.
You're right. Now we'll go to Parashat Bo. We'll go to page 307. Moses is telling Pharaoh about the 10th plague.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Is it the firstborn son of the father? Or is it of the mother?
It's interesting that you're mentioning it. We will learn it in a few more minutes, but if you want, I'll tell you already now. In this issue, it's the firstborn of the womb of the mother. For inheritance, another thing, it goes by the father. Jacob, for example, if he would have the mitzvah of Pidyon Haben redeeming the firstborn son, he would have to do 4 Pidyon Habens. Because it was the firstborn of Leah was Reuven, the firstborn of Rachel was Joseph, the firstborn of Bilhah I think was Issachar, and the firstborn of Zilpah was a God. You understand? That he had 4 women, the firstborn of the womb of the mother. But when it comes to inheritance, Jacob's estate, Reuven would get the 20%, the double portion. Not Joseph and not God, and not, you understand? Because there is 2 separate types of firstborn. In this issue, it goes by the mother, the first of the womb of the mother.
It has to be redeemed.
Has to be redeemed.
Okay.
And that says, go ahead.
Technically, because of an act, can a person lose their right? Like Reuven obviously had an issue, but technically, halakhically,
No, you cannot lose your right.
You don't lose your right.
No such thing as using the right.
Okay.
No, and that's written in the Bible. You cannot, if you have 2 wives and one you hate and one you love, and you cannot say, "Oh, I'll give the firstborn of the loved one, not of the." You have to give to the person who was given firstborn. No such thing. You cannot lose it. No, firstborn, you're firstborn. Now we'll read here what happened with how the firstborn evolved. God said to Moses, chapter 11.
God said to Moses, "There is one more plague that I will send against Pharaoh in Egypt. After that, he will let you leave this place. When he lets you leave, he will actually drive you out of here.
You know what? Let's skip this. We go to number 4. Moses said to Pharaoh, in God's name.
Moses said to Pharaoh in God's name, around midnight, I will go out of the midst of Egypt. Every firstborn in Egypt will die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh sitting on his throne to the firstborn of the slave girl behind the millstones. Every firstborn animal will also die.
Continue.
There will be a great great cry of anguish throughout all Egypt. Never before has there been anything like it, and never again will there be anything like it. But among the Israelites, a dog will not even whine, because of man or beast. You will then realize that God is making a miraculous distinction between Egypt and Israel.
Okay. Then God says the firstborn Egyptian will die, and he will save the firstborn Jewish kids. That he will save. And then on page 311, the Torah continues with that.
Why the firstborn animals and the firstborn everything?
Because the firstborn, that's the important one. The firstborn are the important one. Because it's a reflection of the Jewish people. The firstborn Jews, the Jews are the firstborn. That anything that if you don't let the Jews go, anything firstborn will go. That was the idea. Now on page 311, he says in number 12. Mark, you want to read?
I will pass through Egypt on that night, and I will kill every firstborn in Egypt, man and beast. I will perform acts of judgment against all the gods of Egypt. I alone am God. The blood will be signed for you on the house where you are staying. I will see the blood and pass you by Pesach. There will be not any deadly plague among you when I strike Egypt.
That God says again, I will save the Jewish people, the Jewish firstborn. And that he says the same thing at page 313.
Before we get there, how do the gods of Egypt affect the firstborn here?
It doesn't say it affects the firstborn. Why
It says,
is it?
I will perform acts of judgment against all the gods of Egypt.
Yeah.
All right, is that in some way related to the firstborn as well? Because there are many who say that all the plagues are somehow tied to...
Yeah.
an
But
Egyptian
which
god.
one exactly? I don't know. I know what you mean. On page 313, number 27.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
One question on that. Say, God forbid, there should be Jewish scoffers in Egypt, and they're like, I'm not putting my blood on my doorpost. Was there an understanding as to what happened
Very
to the
interesting.
firstborn?
Yes.
Didn't it say
Yes.
somewhere that God would pass over those houses also?
Yes. Not only this, even those who were sitting in the barn and having a drink on the Seder night together with their Egyptian friends, even they were saved. Yes. But I'm sure there were more than one guy who said, I don't care for the Seder. I have more important things to do now. Yes.
Well, wasn't it 4/5 of the Jews actually stayed
Even
there?
them, yeah, but
But no,
the
they stayed behind. They
you're
stayed.
right. The firstborn did not die on that night if they were Jewish. Now, on page 313, number 26.
Your children may then ask you, what is the service to you? You must answer, it is the Passover service to God. He passed over the houses of the Israelites in Egypt when he struck the Egyptians, sparing our homes. The people bent their heads and prostrated themselves. The Israelites went to did as God had instructed Moses and Aaron. They did it exactly.
Okay, now we'll go to. Where is it? Page 317. Commandment commemorating the Exodus.
God spoke to Moses, saying, Sanctify to me every firstborn that initiates the womb among the Israelites. Among both man and beast, it is mine.
Okay, here God says clearly, the firstborn belongs to me. Right? That's the first time you hear this word. Till now we are the firstborn, killing the firstborn, not killing the firstborn. My firstborn son Israel. Here God tells the Jewish people, the firstborn belongs to me. Why? Turn the page. Consecration of the firstborn. Here comes the explanation. Continue.
There will come a time when God will have brought you to the land of the Canaanites, which he promised you and your ancestors, and he will have given it to you. You will then bring to God every firstborn that initiates the womb. Whenever you have a young firstling animal, the males belong to God. Every firstling donkey must be redeemed with a sheep. If it is not redeemed, you must decapitate it. You must also redeem every firstborn among your sons.
Here it talks about redeeming. First he said, every firstborn, sanctify every firstborn to me. Now he says that you have to redeem the firstborn. Why you have to redeem the firstborn? Here comes the explanation. Continue. The explanation comes right there. Yeah.
Your child may later ask you, what is this?
What is this? Why redeeming the firstborn?
You must answer him, with a show of power God brought us out of Egypt, the place of slavery. When Pharaoh stubbornly refused to let us leave, God killed all the firstborn in Egypt, man and beast alike. I therefore sacrifice to God all male firstling animals, and redeem all the firstborn of my sons.
That's it. Here is the explanation. Because God saved the firstborn sons in Egypt, because really, as the Medrash puts it, the Satan came to God and he said, why are you sparing the Jewish firstborn? Are they better than the Egyptian? They are idol worshippers and they're idol worshippers. Then God said they will have to deserve it. And what made the Jewish people deserve to be saved? When they slaughtered the lamb. Slaughtering the lamb means slaughtering the god of the Egyptian, of Egypt. That they denied the idol worshipping that they were doing. That alone made them deserve the miracle. You understand? Then here the story of Egypt, that's the main reason for the mitzvah of Pidyon Haben. Why we have to, God says, they belong to me, I saved them, they belong to me, they are mine. Now how they redeem themselves? By paying money, as you'll see later. Not only in this way, it was, if you remember, what happened when the Egyptian firstborn heard of the news that they are going to die. It's written in the Medrash that when we say it there is a prayer we say it in the synagogue, Kilo Olam Chasdo, we say it in the book of Psalms, we say there, Lemake Mitzrayim Bivchoreem. God beat up the Egyptian with the firstborn. The Medrash says what happened, and the firstborn sons heard from the Jews that they're going to go out from Egypt because it's going to be the 10th plague of the firstborn. The firstborn of the Egyptian didn't want to die. And they believed already Moses, after 9 plagues, you establish a credibility. If you 9 times you were right, you believe that the 10th time will also come. They went and they fought, they tried to force the Egyptian army and police and the king to allow the Jewish people go. The king didn't want to, Pharaoh didn't want to, there was a war between the Egyptian and their firstborn. That the firstborn Egyptian were fighting in the name of the Jewish people to beat up the Egyptian, to allow the Jewish people go. That again we see the connection of the firstborn. Then here we see that the firstborn son, because he was saved by God from Egypt, therefore yes, he's dedicated, first of all he's sanctified to God. That's what God says, Kadosh li kopcher, you have to sanctify the firstborn, and in the end of the story you have to redeem him. Then here comes the whole concept of redeeming the firstborn son. That's the first time. Let's continue a little bit in the journey of the Bible about the firstborn. It's amazing to see how many times it's written. Page 369, I'm sorry. Accepting authority is the little title down. You want to read? Yeah, please.
Do not curse the judges. Do not curse a leader of your people. Do not delay your offerings of newly ripened produce and your agricultural offerings. Give me the firstborn of your sons.
Give me the firstborn of your sons. Right here. That's it. And right a minute later, he's speaking about other things. But it's like, give me the first ripening of the... We know that you have to bring the first fruit, you have to bring to the temple. Bikurim. Right? Bechor means firstborn. Bikurim means the first. The idea is there is another idea in the redeeming the firstborn is that the first belongs to God. Forget about the story with Egypt, even before the story of Egypt. The first, making a statement, the first you give to God. Like in the first fruit you give to God, the first fruit of your womb between a couple, the first you dedicate to God.
But only a male.
Only a male because only the male boys, according to the text, were dying in Egypt.
Okay.
That's why it's only a male. And also from a technical point, the idea was that they should serve in the temple, as you're going to see in a minute. The idea was that every firstborn son will serve in the temple. In this way, the family will be connected to the temple. It's an amazing idea. Can you imagine that in the army, every firstborn son from every family goes to the army? Automatically, the whole nation is patriotic. Automatically, everybody supports the army. And more than that, every family has an emotional connection to the army. It's their own child. One child from every family, that's it. You have 5 children, go ahead. But first son goes to the army. Then in this way, if first son will go to the temple, he will be the role model for Judaism. He will bring Judaism to the home. Can you imagine that every family would send at least the first child to Jewish day schools? He will bring Judaism to the house, to world, to life. The same thing is here. Then that's what he's talking about, the firstborn son. That's why the firstborn son more than the daughters. Where we see that the firstborn sons were actually serving in the beginning as a Kohen, we see it in the same parsha, a little further. Here is on page 377. I'm sorry that I run with you from place to place, but that's how this mitzvah evolved. Here, this part is a description of the Jewish people preparing for Mount Sinai. Even it's written not in its place. This is a day or two before Mount Sinai. And it's written here that Moses offered sacrifices. If you read number 4, you want to read number 4?
Moses wrote down all of God's words. He got up early in the morning and built an altar at the foot of the mountain, along with 12 pillars for the 12 tribes of Israel. He sent the consecrated young men.
He sent the consecrated young men to offer sacrifices, right, among the Israelites.
And they offered oxen as burnt offerings and peace offerings to God.
Okay, who are the young men that he's talking about? Let's see if he brings it in the note here. Consecrated young men, you see the little note in the bottom, 24:5? They were the firstborn. Go ahead.
Who served as priests before Aaron's sons were chosen.
They were the firstborn. They served as priests. The idea was that the firstborns will be serving as priests. And here is the first time before Mount Sinai it was put to practice.
Why was that? I mean, was this the custom of the Egyptians or others as to what the firstborn became the...
No, we see already Jacob and Esau, I forgot.
But they weren't priests. So.
No, that means the best you give to God. The idea is the first and the best you give to God. If the firstborn is my first and my best, I give him to God. That's the logic behind
So he's
it.
the one who's serving God.
That was the whole.
Yes.
That was the whole thing with.
Yeah, giving to God, God forbid, doesn't mean to do anything to him. To dedicate him for the service of God.
That was the whole thing with Cain and Abel. To give the best to God.
That's another thing, yeah, that's what it can enable. But now, especially after God already told in Egypt to Moses, sanctify the firstborn to me. What does it mean sanctify to me? They should be my people. Their life should be dedicated to godly things. Here it was an opportunity to do something godly. You have to choose somebody to go out offer the sacrifice. The whole nation cannot do it. The question is who you're choosing. It was before the days of a Kohen or a Levi. Who should be the firstborn? They went. It makes sense on every level. Then we know here, so far we know, number one, that from day one, the firstborns were favored by humanity, between Jacob and Esau, between Ephraim and Manasseh. Then we see the story that God saved the firstborn, and now they become godly. Not only they were favored by people, God made a clear statement that the firstborn belong to me because I saved them. Therefore, they should redeem themselves. Now comes more than that. In the book of Numbers, okay, page 673. Numbers starts with, why it's called Numbers? Because that was the counting of the Jewish people, right? Mm-hmm. We'll read in the top of page 673, number 39. Want to read? Go ahead.
The entire tally of the Levites was made by Moses and Aaron by families. There were 22,000 males over 1 month old.
Over one, that's, by the way, all the other tribes were counted from the age of 20 to the age of 60, only male. Here they came to the tribe of the Levite, they count every Levite from the age of 1 month. The Levite was the smallest tribe. Why was the Levite the smallest tribe? What happened? It goes back to the parsha of this week. We read in the parsha right in the beginning that the Jewish people were suffering in Egypt, and the more they were tortured, the more children they had. The tribe of the Levites were never tortured. They were not slaves. If you don't slaves, you don't have this extra blessing. It goes both ways. If you don't have the suffering, you don't have the extra blessing. Therefore, they were a small tribe.
Why were they not selected as slaves?
It's a whole other story because in Egypt was respect to the priests. And they were all considered a spiritual tribe, if you want.
Even though they'd been the enforcers, you might say?
Only Levi himself.
Uh-huh.
But they were the spiritual tribe, and Joseph respected the priest, right? He gave them. It's a whole other story. In any case, they were 22,000 males. Now, let's continue to read the text. God said
to Moses, make a tally of the male firstborn among the Israelites who are over 1 month old, and take a census of their names.
Also from 1 month old. He counted the Levites from 1 month old. Now he says count the firstborn sons from 1 month old. Okay. Go ahead, continue.
Take the Levites to me, I am God, in place of all the Israelite male firstborn.
Take the Levites to me instead of the all firstborn. In the beginning, God said, when they left Egypt, God said, sanctify all the firstborn. So to speak, the firstborn, the agenda was the firstborn will be the priest of God. He replaces them, right? What is it? Okay, continue.
Also, take the Levites' animals in place of the Israelites' firstborn animals.
Okay, continue.
Moses made a tally of all the firstborn male Israelites as God had commanded him. According to the number of their names, the tally of all the firstborn over 1 month old was 22,273.
Unbelievable. 22,000 Levites, and all the firstborn of the old Jewish people were only 22,273. Now we'll take a little break here and explain you why is it like this? Why so little? The whole nation was 600,000 male, right? And only 22,000 firstborn? And from the age of 1 month. That 600,000 men, that was from the age of 20 to 60. Firstborn was from the day of 1 month old. That should be a lot more. Because a firstborn, if the girl is first, it's not considered a firstborn. Number one. If there was a miscarriage first, it's not considered the firstborn. It's called Peter Rechem, the first of the womb. It's not the first of the womb. If it was a C-section, that's Jewish law today, C-section, you're not allowed, then you cannot do a Pidyon Haben because it didn't come out naturally. In today, then when you go, now in today, the law is also, it's replaced with a Kohen or a Levi. If the firstborn is a Kohen or a Levi, you don't have to replace him because You don't have to redeem him because he's actually serving in the temple, so to speak. He's ready to serve. If the mother of the baby is a daughter of a Kohen or a Levi, again you don't have to do this. Then they say there is 30% of children, of families have a firstborn son, and maybe even less. Look around. Now, how often you heard about a Pidyon Haben? Very rare. By you, it's a boy first?
Boy first.
By you, it's a
Yeah,
boy
we
first.
had
You're the
one.
Pidyon Haben.
Yeah.
By you, it's a boy first? By you? No. By you?
Boy,
Boy.
C-section.
What's this section? No, but by me it was a girl first. You understand what I'm saying? Here it's unusual to have 3 boys first. But most of the cases, there is, I can tell you, everybody I know, really, you have a boy first who has all the rules that can apply to it. Therefore, there was only 22,273 firstborn and the 22,000 Levites to replace them. But there is a problem. We have 273. There is nobody to replace them. Right? Levites, we have exactly 22,000. Firstborn, we have 22,273. What do you do with it? Let's see what God said. Mark, God spoke to Moses saying,
God said to Moses, make a tally of the male firstborn among the Israelites, or we already read that, right?
No, we didn't. Go ahead.
Or 1 month old, and take a census of the names. Take the Levites to me, I am God, in place of all the
Where were you
Israelites.
reading? Number 44 in the bottom. Substituting the Levites.
Okay. Oh, I see. God spoke to Moses, saying, take the Levites in place of all the male firstborn Israelites. Also take the Levites' livestock in place of the Israelites' firstborn animals. The Levites shall thus become mine. I am God. Also take a redemption for the 273 individuals by which the firstborn outnumber the Levites.
Here comes the idea. The first 2,273, you should redeem them.
This shall be 5 shekels for each individual, according to the sanctuary standard, where the shekel is 200 gerars. Give the silver to Aaron and his sons as a redemption for the firstborn, who are in excess of the Levites.
Okay, then God says, here is the deal. The 273 people will have to pay. Here is the first time we read a number. Until now, God said in the book of Exodus, you should redeem them. He didn't say for how much. It's not written in the book of Exodus for how much. Here in the book of Numbers, it's written the first time how much you have to pay for firstborn. 5 shekels. And as we learned already, we are scholars. We know that the 5 shekels was the amount of Rachel. They sold Joseph for 5 shekels.
For the shoes.
And Joseph was the firstborn of Rachel. To atone for this sin of selling a firstborn of Rachel, we are paying, we're redeeming our firstborn for 5 shekels.
Am I confused, or wasn't it 20 shekels?
It was 20
Divided by-
silver coins,
Okay,
and the 20 silver coins is the worth of 5 shekels.
gotcha.
Yes. Every 4 silver coin is 1 shekel, so it's 5 shekels. Yes.
When
And-
you redeem the boy, where the money goes?
I'll get to it. Let's see. We'll continue to read. We'll see. You read it. Go ahead.
49?
Yeah, 49.
Moses took the redemption money for those.
No, I'm sorry. Go read 48. That's the answer.
Give the silver to Aaron and his sons as a redemption for the firstborn who are in excess of the Levites.
Give it to the Aaron and sons. Give it to the Kohen. Straight. Simple and clear. Give it to the Kohen. That's the answer. What do you do with the money? Now the problem is, everyone will say, I have a Levite to replace me. There is 22,000 Levites, right? You come to a regular firstborn, you say, give me 5 shekels. He says, no, I have him to replace me. He's replacing me. Everyone will come and grab a Levite. Will be no end to it. And Moses knew that with the Jewish people, you'll never get anywhere. You can fight until today, they would still fighting. And what he did, he made a raffle. Rashi says he made a raffle. He took 22,000 notes, and he wrote on every note, Ben Levi. And 273 notes, white, empty. And he put a big box, and he told every firstborn and the Jewish people to come and take out a paper. Written Levi, go home. White, you have to pay the 5 shekels.
So who are we paying today? Now that there are no official Aaron, or at least there are no official coins. Bob's looking very, very excited about this. But
What do you mean there's no official coins? Every coin, we pay it to a coin.
Okay.
What do you mean?
So
well, that's why Bob's looking pretty excited.
Yeah,
he's
absolutely.
going to be
In our
hired.
profession.
Don't leave your day job.
That's right. No, my son has done that.
Yeah, I'm sure, yeah.
So what happens? I mean, there's
Oh, how you do it?
you find a coin and
Yeah.
pay them.
It goes more, it's a whole ceremony. It's written in the text, you get a coin, you make a big party, and and the coin is asking you, what do you want better? The father of the child says, my son, my Israelite wife gave me a firstborn son. And the coin is asking him, what do you want better, the 5 shekels or the firstborn son? It's a rhetorical question because you have to give 5 shekels, even if you don't want to. You say, some father say, okay, take him home until for the first 2 years, then I'll take him back. You wake up in the middle of the night for him. I don't need it. Enjoy it. The rhetorical question is, what's more important to you? Your child or your money? Business or your family? That's a real question. What comes first? And the father says, I want my firstborn, and here is the money. And he gives him the 5 shekels in his hand. And then the Kohen says, the father says a blessing, Asher kidishanu b'mitzvah אתה וציוונו על Pidyon Haben, to redeem the firstborn. Then he says Shechianu. Why we say Shechianu by a bris, by a Pidyon Haben, and we don't say Shechianu by a bris? We'll leave it to the end of the class. Give you time to think. In any case, that's not the only time, the end of the story with the firstborn. Now, why God is replacing here? He says, I take the replacement of the firstborn, the Levites instead of the firstborn. God explains that in a little bit further.
Excuse me, the 5 shekels, is
yes.
that like Israeli shekels right now? Or?
No, it's 100 grams of silver. The worth of 100 grams of silver. 1 ounce, somebody told me it's like 4 ounces. 1 ounce today is like $25. It's $100 worth. The things that we use, there is the $1 silver coin
Yes,
from 19,
silver
the old
dollars.
ones. The old ones who really add the amount of silver that you needed.
29.3 grams.
Here you go. Then if 5 of them is more than 100 grams. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Then when you have these old coins, then you have five coins. And then you have it. Now on page 705, again we go to speak about the Levites and the firstborn. 705, number 15. Who's supposed to read? I think it's you, Susie.
Oh, it's me. After you have purified them and designated them as a wave offering, the Levites shall come to perform the service in the communion tent. They are given to me from among the Israelites in place of the firstborn that initiate the womb of all the Israelites. I have taken them for myself. This is because all firstborn of the Israelites are mine, man and beast alike. I sanctified them for myself on the day that I killed all the firstborn in Egypt. I have now taken the Levites in place of all the firstborn Israelites, and I have given the Levites as a gift from the Israelites to Aaron and his descendants. They shall henceforth perform the service for the Israelites in the communion tent and atone for the Israelites.
Then here God says the whole story. I have taken the firstborn Israelites became sanctified to me because I saved them in Egypt. Since then they owe me one. They belong to me. I saved their life. I spared their life. I spared it. They owed their life to me. And I am doing, the Levites are replacing the Israelites, that the Israelites should not get to the temple. Why are the Israelites, why are the Levites replacing the Israelite? Because of the golden calf. By the golden calf, right? The firstborns, every tribe at representative who worship the golden calf one way or another. The only tribe that did not worship the golden calf
Is the
Levi.
were the Levites. As we see it, page 453 for a moment. Number 26. I have time. Go ahead.
Number 26.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Moses stood up at the camp's entrance and announced, "Whoever is for God, join me." All the Levites gathered around him. He said to them, "This is what God, Lord of Israel, says. Let each man put on his sword and go from one gate to the other in the camp. Let each one kill all those involved in the idolatry, even his own brother, close friend, or
Okay,
relative."
the point is that I want to make is that all the Levite tribes came to him. None of them was a part of the golden calf. Then God said, a tribe that had some people participating in the golden calf in one way or another cannot serve me. And the firstborn lost the right. Then instead, he took the Levites. That means the firstborn or the Levites won. Therefore, the firstborn pay the Levites, so to speak, five shekels. They have to redeem themselves. The next time that's written even more clear is on page 753. 13 times is the mitzvah of Pidyon Haben, why one way or another mentioned in the Bible.
How many?
13 times. Unbelievable.
Wow.
But then there has to be connected to the.
Obviously, 13 is a famous number. On page 753, if you want, just to confuse you a little more, we'll go to 751, number 6 in the bottom, number 6.
Start,
Go ahead.
is there a significance to silver? Or is it just
Why
money?
silver?
Yeah.
Kesef represents love. Silver represents love.
White. White Chester.
Kesef represents love. Yeah, it represents the love between God to the Jewish people. That's why silver, maybe.
What gold represent?
Modina.
Gold is more gvura,
Gvura.
more judgment. Kesef, silver represents love. It's even a whole discussion about having, by a wedding, some people also really want to like to have a silver ring because it represents love more than gold. But the custom is to have gold. The law is gold. That's the custom, and that's it. You leave it by that. Don't take it home. But there is something about it. Then the page 751, number 6.
I have thus taken your brethren, the Levites, from among the other Israelites as a gift to you. They are given over to God to perform the communion tent service.
That they were given over. Now we'll turn to page 753, number 15.
The first fruits of the womb that must be presented to God among man and beast shall be yours. However, you must redeem the firstborn humans as well as the firstborn of unclean animals. The redemption of a firstborn human male from 1 month old shall be made with the usual endowment of 5 shekels by the sanctuary standard, where the shekel is 20 gerahs.
Here it's written clear, you have to redeem the firstborn, and you have to do it with 5 shekels, right? The firstborn human, that's how you redeem them from God.
It's interesting, you have the firstborn humans, and in the same sentence, the firstborn of unclean animals.
Right.
It's a little strange.
Yeah, it's a mitzvah of the unclean animals, yeah.
Well, I'm
Not
saying
all
if
of
it-
them,
but-
not
but-
all of them. I think only a donkey.
I understand, but it just seems very strange because you'd think it'd be a separate sentence to separate. It's connected and makes a connector.
Why is we know which donkey is being redeemed? I mean, only animal, the non-kosher animal is the donkey. Why the donkey?
Bilam.
One more chance.
Moshe wrote on one.
Getting closer.
And also, supposedly, Moshiach will write in on one or something, no?
Why the donkey? You get closer with Moshe. It's written that the Jewish people, when they left Egypt, they carried on the donkeys all the goods that they had. Because when they took a lot of goods from Egypt, and then to pay off the donkeys for the service that they gave to the Jewish people, God made this mitzvah for redeeming the firstborn donkey. And you redeem it with a seh. A seh is a lamb. What's a seh? Then you redeem it one another. Then here we see, so far we covered the whole Bible story about the firstborn. That's everything that's written in the Bible about the firstborn. And it's really amazing to see how much is written about the firstborn in the Bible. Most of the mitzvahs are written in one letter, in a half a letter, one time, never written. The firstborn son, who is really a real mitzvah, is written so many times. Why? Because the firstborn son represents the Jewish people. We are the firstborn son of Israel. And that brings us to the custom that we do it today. Here it says by 1 month old. When the child turns day 31st, that's when you do, when you have full 30 days, the day 31st, that's the time to do the ceremony, the Pidyon Haben. And what?
What's your day? What's the day? What's the date?
And probably the 6th of January. Then that's when you do what you, in the ceremonies. You take a coin, and you take the baby, you put him on a plate, on a tray, and you put them around. You decorate them with a lot of jewelry. All the women give their jewelry only for a few moments, not forever. But you decorate them with jewelry because it's a big mitzvah. And the custom is that you put around the baby pieces of sugar. And then your people take sugar with them home for themselves. It's considered a merit to eat from this mitzvah. And you say a blessing over a cup of wine. And you do this whole ceremony. It's a small ceremony, but you make a seudas mitzvah, a mitzvah meal. You sit down and you eat, and because it's a very real mitzvah, that's why we don't have it, and people are cherishing this mitzvah. I mean, my brother-in-law Mendy Alevsky did it. Was, I think, in my wife's family, probably was one of the very first who did it. Between one was a Kohen, the other one was a this, that is a. It almost never works out. And as I said before, the Kohen is asking the father, do you want the baby or you want the money? And the father says, I want the baby. And he gives them the 5 shekels. And some Kohens later give back the money. That's okay, that's kosher. As long as you give him the money willingly and with the mind that you give it away completely, that's kosher. And then we say the father of the child says the shechianu. Why says shechianu here and not by a bris? Because by a bris somebody suffers. The baby suffers. Therefore we cannot say shechianu. The joy is not completed. Yeah, shechianu. I'm so happy. I make a bris. Yeah, is he so happy too? I'm not so sure if you would ask him. By a Pidyon Haben, everybody is happy. But why is Pidyon Haben so many times written? Because the Jewish people are the firstborn son of Israel. That when we redeem the firstborn son, we turn to God and we say to God, God, you should also redeem the firstborn son. We redeem him by paying 5 shekels. You, God, redeeming the firstborn son means to take him out from exile. God is the father of the baby, right? Of the Jewish people. We are the firstborn son Israel. That he also has to redeem us from exile. And then he can say that God, like the father who has the obligation to do to redeem the boy? The obligation is on the father. Let's say if somebody is 25 years old and he was never redeemed, the obligation after the bar mitzvah, the obligation is of him. But until the bar mitzvah, from 1 month old, it's not like if you miss the day, you miss the mitzvah. The earliest time you're obligated to do the mitzvah is by the day 31st. Then throughout your life, no matter how old you are, until the last day of your life, and could be even later, that I don't know, I think I saw something about that, you have to do the firstborn, you have to redeem the firstborn son.
that a yearly thing? Or you do that on a yearly basis?
One time,
Okay.
you buy him out from the Kohen. You redeem him, you pay 5 shekels, and then it means to say, if he is not paying the 5 shekel, is so to speak dedicated only to godly things. He's allowed only to be a rabbi or somebody in the shul. Like, if you want him to do, if he's working in the shul, he can even do the computers, whatever it is. If he's dedicated for godly work, but if you want him to do regular things, you have to pay the five
Well,
shekels.
wouldn't you? Don't everyone? You want to be doing godly things.
I'm telling you, no matter what, you have to do the mitzvah. And we say it's in general. In essence, if you wouldn't do this, the person is dedicated to God. He cannot do other job, other work. Is who in Jewish history dedicated his firstborn?
Hannah.
Hannah dedicated her firstborn son Samuel. She actually said, "I'll bring him to God," and then the rest of her kids she didn't dedicate to God, but she brought Samuel and she dedicated him to God. That's what she did. But with the rest of us don't do it, and because we don't do it, we have to give the 5 shekels. Now the interesting thing, another thing about the selling of Joseph that has a connection to the old Jewish people, is when the 10 brothers got the 5 shekels, right? How many each brother got? From the 5 shekels, you divide it to 10 brothers. How much each one got? Half a shekel.
That's the same
There is the
thing.
mitzvah of giving a half a shekel every year to the temple. Then there is, for the firstborn son, we pay what was paid for a firstborn. Every year, we atone for what we got, so to speak. Every individual got a half a shekel. That there are 2 mitzvahs in the Jewish people. Both of them are to atone for the story of it's written in the Medrash also, that the whole reason why we were enslaved in Egypt, we are the firstborn son of God, right? Why were we enslaved in Egypt? Because we sold a firstborn to be a slave. That to atone for selling a firstborn as a slave, all of us were enslaved in Egypt. All the Jewish people were slaves in Egypt because of this story. Because the brothers sold them, they took a firstborn and they put him as a slave. Now all the firstborn had to be slaves. Then the whole story of Pidyon Haben, the whole thing about a firstborn started with Joseph. With selling Joseph, then the Jewish people, then we became firstborn. And then he got saved, the firstborn son, the Jewish people in Egypt. And the whole thing was evolved from this. And you do one bad thing, look how much you have to pay for it. But on the other end, it came out the good side. We are the firstborn son of God. Firstborn son of God means we are number one, that we have the obligation of being a role model like a firstborn son in a family. That's the obligation of every firstborn son. Thank you.